Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for Agency Advice to win new leads in business. I'm Michael Palmer. I work with Manchester Digital to help raise the profile of businesses within our membership, and I'll be hosting today's event. When the lockdown first came into place, most businesses were concerned with the logistics of getting their staff set up to work remotely, managing their cash flows, and looking after employee well-being. Now within the, I think the 8th week of lockdown, lots of businesses are telling us that the focus is starting to turn towards preparing for whatever the new normal is. A key factor in normality is winning new business. So we thought we'd turn to some of the experts within our membership, asking digital marketing agencies to provide some much needed advice as to what actions businesses can take right now to cut through the noise and improve their pipeline and start generating new business once again. The format of this event will see 3 15-minute talks, starting with CTI Digital's James Wilkinson, Fluid Digital's Joshua Hobson, and then Bliss's John Stutfield. After the talks, we'll have a Q&A, so please, as the talk is taking place, drop any questions you may have in the chat function, and I'll pick them up with the speakers during the Q&A. We'll also be ending with some online networking. If you haven't taken part in a Hopin networking event before, we really do advise you stick around. We've had a lot of great feedback on the platform. For now, I'd like to ask our speakers to briefly introduce themselves and their business. So, James, would you like to go first?
Yeah, sure. So my name is James Wilkinson. I am Marketing Director at CTI Digital. We are a full service agency based in Ancoats in Manchester. We've been around for about 15 years now, and we work across web development, digital marketing, and yeah, today I'm going to be talking to you about B2B lead generation.
Great. Joshua?
Hi everyone, I'm Joshua Hobson. I'm the marketing manager at Fluid Digital. We're an e-commerce agency based in the northern quarter in Manchester. We're a multi-platform agency, so we work across Magento and Shopify, but we also offer PPC and Amazon marketing and CRO services as well to help businesses grow. So I'll be talking about more of the B2C side of the crisis at the moment and how businesses can drive new customers.
And John?
Hi everyone, my name's John Stutfield. I'm the CEO of Bliss, and Bliss is a digital strategy and support agency based in Manchester. I will be doing a very general talk today about improvements you can make to your website to help it convert better.
Fantastic, thanks all three of you. So James is going to kick us off. So can I please ask John and Joshua to turn off your cameras, and I'll do the same, and we'll hand over to James.
Cool. So, hopefully everyone can see my screen. Excellent. Okay, so I mean, as the first speaker of the day, I'm going to obviously just mention that we are in unprecedented times at the moment, and I think it's quite interesting as well to see how, as the weeks progress and we start to come out of furlough and we start to come back, how this is going to progress. There's some data and some stats that I've got within the presentation I'll go through with you this morning, which kind of just shows us a trend of what's starting to happen. And that should hopefully give some confidence around making some decisions. But, it's not the first time we've been in a crisis like this from a financial perspective, and being in a recession, so we can look back at what happened in 2008 and 9 to see what we need to do. But I just want to kind of have a look at where we are currently, because as Michael mentioned, we're in week 8, week 9 now of lockdown. And a lot of you in the B2B sector will have put a complete hold or pause on a lot of your strategies, especially if a lot of those strategies were event or exhibition conference based, because all of that has kind of been pulled now unless they've been moved online. But we can see that there is an increase in internet usage, about 19% up for the kind of the 3-month period of the year, and also an increase in social media usage, 27% increase. Now that's obviously opened up more ad space availability, so lower cost per clicks, but we're not seeing that drive through to conversions, obviously, because it's very different traffic that we're seeing increase online. And one of the key things I think to be aware of, so this is some data that came out from the government around estimated furlough rates based on business sectors. So overall, I think it's around 26% of all businesses have somebody on furlough as the average. But when we look at specific sectors, so if you work obviously with accommodation or food services, arts, entertainment, recreation, that's going to be a big blocker for you at the moment in terms of generating leads, because if they are all on furlough, you can't speak to anybody. So just bearing those things in mind and how that kind of furlough scheme is reduced and how that impact changes it needs to have an impact on how you're focusing your strategy. So another thing to mention is we could kind of all in this together, as we all know, but HubSpot's got some really good data. So HubSpot is a CRM for B2B businesses, and it also manages sales pipelines. So they've got around 70,000 customers globally. So what they've done is they've amalgamated this data to look at how many new deals are being created and how many deals are being closed at the moment. And kind of from that period there, we can see from around 2nd of March, we can see that the kind of baseline before COVID-19 now, there is a big drop. And when we're looking at specific sectors, we can see that's disproportionately affecting manufacturing, construction, and computer software. Travel is even worse impacted. But what we can see is in the last 2 weeks, the last week in HubSpot's data that's telling us that actually construction and manufacturing have actually generated more leads than they would have in that same week last year. So it looks like for those sectors that the tide is turning in terms of new deals being created. Now, this isn't necessarily deals closed, when there's a link at the bottom of this. So I'd recommend you guys go and have a look, because it's very, very interesting. But if you look at deals closed, we can still see that below. It's around 20% below year on year, and it has been consistently across most sectors for the last 8 weeks. So, can we get more deals in? Yes. Are we going to be likely to close them? Still potentially a struggle. But because there's a pandemic going on and there's a recession, it doesn't mean we throw everything out. Obviously, there's still a customer life cycle, and we need to adapt and change our message around how we're going to try and communicate with our potential leads. So what I'm going to do is just focus on the different stages in the life cycle and just kind of give you some ideas, suggestions of what you should be doing now. And one of the key things I think to start off with is to look at that data. It's going to be a common theme through my presentation, is to look at the data that's coming through, because everything is changing so quickly. Using any kind of previous year forecasts, as we can see from those previous slides, is kind of a bit skewed. So therefore, we need to rethink. So one of the key things as well is that now digital is going to be more important than ever. I mean, this is something that a lot of businesses were driving towards anyway. And I think that this pandemic and being in isolation is probably going to drive forward innovation around digital, and especially in B2B marketing and B2B sales as well, where a lot of that is still done face-to-face or out in the field. When there's some research from McKinsey & Company, which is asking businesses about where they think digital enabled sales interactions are going to be more important, not surprisingly, we now see that's double for the period after COVID-19 than it was before. So it's forced this change. But one thing to mention, obviously, with obviously the isolation, with all events being cancelled, not to cancel budgets. We need to try and pivot those budgets. There's other research that came out in Financial Times back in 2008, which documented that brands that either maintained or increased their advertising revenue managed to gain market share and a return on investment when economic times came back, versus some of the ones that actually pulled back on spend or halted. Now, obviously, completely understand that you have to protect cash flow in the business, but pivoting the budget to areas where we can invest, where we can see return in the shorter term and longer term, is always my preference. And we've had that conversation with quite a few clients. We can see here where that's being pivoted to in a survey done in March this year. So that's around content creation, webinars and digital events, obviously to try and replace more of those physical ones, search advertising, social media, and SEO. So I would recommend that if you can pivot your budget to those kind of areas, then that is really where you're going to be able to see some metrics initially to be able to monitor performance, but also you'll be able to see some longer term benefits. And this kind of feeds in, I think, to a piece of B2B customer research as well, which has been done by McKinsey & Company, where we look at how it's changing longer term. So let's go back to 2016. We can see that a lot of customers were still happy to have, directed research, evaluation and order and reorder in the purchase journey. Now more than ever, they're wanting self-serve. They want to find the information themselves. They want to find information about the product, the service. They don't want to have to speak to somebody necessarily. They don't want to have to speak to a salesperson. So if you have a strategy to enable your business to provide that and it's online, it's only going to put you in a stronger position. So let's jump into the attract stage. So driving traffic to your websites. I think it's really interesting to have a look at how things have changed recently. I mean, there's a tool called Seo Monitor. So that's linked to here. Have a look at that. You can put your domain in, and what it does is it's telling you your top tanking trends and your top growing trends. So I've just put brother in here for an example, which is for a printer website or printer manufacturer. So you can see that there are quite a lot of keywords that are dropping, like recycling toner cartridges, but there are some of them that are growing. So you can see there's like 50% increase in searches for label printers, obviously probably due to more distribution requirements. So it's about understanding what is growing and what is shrinking in your market and changing, and again, pivoting your strategy towards those areas. Where kind of tools like this can help you jump on those quite quickly. And then there's even the search terms, which are kind of really interesting. They're ones where there was no history before, and now they have extraordinary search volumes in the last 2 months. So again, this tool is quite useful because it shows you when COVID-19 hit, it shows you what we would have expected if it was a year-on-year increase and what the actual. So this is from one of our clients. So paint delivered, nobody was looking for paint delivered before COVID-19. 74,000 people wanting it in April in last month. So making sure that you're not missing those opportunities where you're able to get content out around some of those keywords or key phrases which are relevant to your business and how your customers are adapting to how they're going to be potentially purchasing or researching your product or service is key. And that kind of needs to feed into your content plan. It also needs to feed in as well to your advertising if you want that immediate visibility, because we can see that there are huge search volumes in certain terms at the moment. They'll start to probably trail off. So at the convert stage of the journey, then we're kind of looking at how we get these people as leads on the website. So one of the things I'd recommend is if you already have a database of subscribers, it would probably be good, rather than just pushing out communication, try and learn something about them if you can. So what we recommend to clients at the moment is, we are in unprecedented times, sending out an email campaign, and it could have maybe 3 or 6 blocks in that campaign, and ask them what is their biggest struggle right now. And then once one of the users has clicked on one of those blocks, that gives you a list to send to the sales team to go, right, do you want to reach out to them because they've told us this is their biggest struggle? Have we got some supporting content we can send them? Have we got something we can invite them to, like a webinar, or have we got a white paper? So it's looking at actually how you start those conversations to support your potential leads and start to nurture them. And then also the resources that you have, go back through the existing white papers if you do have them. Check over your landing pages. Do these need to be updated in light of COVID-19 and what impact it's having on your sector? One thing as well I think is quite interesting is obviously everything is now on webinars like this, or training days. So, I mean, we used to do training days in our office. We've moved them online. And I was always wanting a video content around it. And it was such a struggle to get that just from our perspective. Whereas now, because it's all online, you get pre-recorded, you get it all recorded here, you can cut it into snippets, add it onto YouTube. YouTube is actually the second biggest search engine. So for people that don't know, it's worthwhile putting it out there, because you will find there's people that are searching for things on there. So if you're doing webinars, make sure you get the recording, make some short snippets of it, and use that as stuff to lead people through to your website as well on YouTube. That can be very useful. And it's all about trying to get more really out of your existing leads. So, if you do have that database, looking at ways you can nurture it. At the close stage, if you do have automations in place, you probably have hopefully already looked at this now as we're in week 8. But, if you do have sample requests that people can order online, have you got the follow up to that to push back a little bit because there is an issue with posting or delays in getting things out? Are all of those automations relevant at the moment? Do you have a team to support that? Do you need to change those or switch those off? There don't need to be really advanced ones like this example here from Digital, but even a system like Mailchimp and others will be able to give you that. I think also it's about having the right tech stack. So if there is a lull in your sector and you are potentially looking at, we can't drive any more leads, what can we do? Now is a perfect time to start to think about, well, actually, do we have all the things we need integrated and connected in place, like the CRM connected to the website? Do we have a lead nurture email system? Have we got behavioral tracking so that we can do lead scoring on the website? Also, again, lead scoring, you're going to need to revisit that because your website might be seeing 20-30% uplift in traffic, but not all of it's going to be converting. So if anything less than before, so do you need to start to dial down your lead scoring metrics because you could be sending to sales a lot of unqualified leads right now. So it's also about considering, do we need to look at adjusting those how that lead scoring works? So there is quite a lot of help out there at the moment. A lot of platforms are giving free credits and other schemes. So I'll quickly talk through a couple of them that are available. So you've got LinkedIn ad credits, which is available. You should be able to find them if you've not advertised before on LinkedIn. There's also a Facebook grant, which is for smaller businesses. So maybe not for everybody on here. That is currently being rolled out. It's not been rolled out in the UK yet. So you can register and they will let you know when it's available. There is Google Ad credits. So if you've advertised for, I believe it's 10 out of the 12 months of 2019, and in January or February this year, you will automatically get that credit at some point. So keep an eye out for that. And also there's obviously the bounce back loan from the government. Now, from a B2B perspective, you can actually use that in your email communications to potential customers. If you've got them just there, almost about to go over the line, use them to say, if you invest by purchasing with us, then you can use the bounce back loan. This is the estimated return we expect if you're able to do that in your sector. Just helping them to understand that there is other ways to continue working together. Also, if you are at the very journey of being online as a business, then Mailchimp's offering it as a free domain. It's $25 credit basically off of the domain name, and you can build a website through Mailchimp, very kind of basic one, but you get that kind of email platform as well. So there's lots of different tools that are there. Also, HubSpot have got lots of offers currently on with CRO platforms and call tracking software. So have a look at those and see, where you need to focus as a business and what you want, because there's lots of offers going around at the moment to help support business. Cool. So to kind of summarize, I think, as I mentioned, you need to look at the data that's coming out at the moment, find data that's relevant for your sector, that's really giving you insight, and pivot your strategy on that and your budget. If you can move to a fully online model or sell more of a self-service model, it's going to serve you well. That time you invest now, I mean, COVID, we will go back to some normality, but the reality is it's probably going to take a lot of time. So actually, having more things online and self-serve is going to only put businesses in a better stead for the future. And also understanding what your leads need right now. So again, asking them, surveying them, finding that out and tailoring your strategy around that. And yeah, make use of all the available schemes or grants that you can find, and make sure potentially where you can do, also utilize them with your customers. Cool. And that's it. Thanks.
Very much, James. That was fantastic. I'm sure that lots of people have questions for James. So if you could please type them into the chat function and we'll pick those up at the end. Joshua, can I ask you to turn your camera on, and James, can I ask you to turn yours off? We'll do a bit of blankety blank style stretching around there. So I will also turn my camera off and hand over to Joshua.
Great stuff. Thank you very much. So let me just share my screen. So hi everyone, I'm Joshua Hobson. I'm the marketing manager at Fluid Digital. I'm here to talk a little bit more about the B2C side. We're an e-commerce agency, so I work with retailers day to day. So the majority of stuff I've put in this presentation is more about how retailers can win new customers. But I know that a lot of viewers here will be working at other agencies or other types of businesses. So a lot of the advice that we're putting here can be kind of transcended across all businesses as well. So hopefully you will find it useful. So talking about how to win new customers in a crisis, supporting retailers and maintaining e-commerce industry leadership. So what are the best practices? So like I said, this is a nice picture of me. I'm the marketing manager for Digital. Like I said before, we're an e-commerce growth agency. We're based in Manchester, and we work with online brands to build and grow successful e-commerce stores. So we are a multi-platform agency. We build sites on both Magento and Shopify, and we also offer PPC and Amazon marketing to grow e-commerce stores post-launch as well. So as we kind of talk about the current climate, so there are two different mindsets that retailers and businesses on a whole are having. So the first mindset is this is an opportunity to transform a business. They might be the types of retailers and businesses who are increasing budgets, they're increasing activity because either based on their sector, this is an opportunity for them, or they just recognize that kind of the way to navigate their way through this crisis is to really invest in their marketing and their activity. Obviously, a lot of the retailers we work with are kind of in that kind of mindset because a lot of retailers are kind of being forced to look at e-commerce and look at online. But I think that's the same for a lot of businesses as well. Or the second mindset is this is an uncertain time and we need to freeze budgets and activity. Both of them are obviously kind of understandable, and both of them have merits in different situations and the different types of businesses. But it's definitely the first mindset that we're seeing, where the retailers are seeing incredible growth. Like James said, it's an opportunity to transform the business. Really, you really want to be increasing your budgets and looking at your marketing. So we'll put together some advice here, looking at more of the actionable tips that retailers and businesses can take away. There have been tons of webinars giving out advice already. So maybe there's a few things that you've kind of heard over and over again, or there might be some things that it's the first time you're hearing about them. So it might just be reinforcing stuff you already have heard, but either way, I hope you find it useful. So how can retailers and businesses maximize growth during this time of uncertainty? So the first point that we've been trying to make to all of our clients and all of the businesses we speak to is being honest and transparent. Customers, we found, are being really understanding at this time. So don't be afraid to share, any challenges that your businesses are facing at the moment with your customers. The big thing is kind of don't lie to your customers. Don't treat your customers as if they don't know what's going on. A lot of them are very understanding. I know myself as a consumer have been very understanding when it comes to delivery times or return policies when I've been shopping online personally. So we've seen a lot of businesses who are trying to kind of hide how long it's going to take for delivery to come and try and kind of bend the truth a little bit because they're scared it's going to impact conversion rate. But I think the big thing is being honest and transparent, because customers are definitely going to be understanding to kind of your circumstances of business. And on the most part, I think, especially for smaller businesses, customers are willing to help them out as best they can. So that's definitely a big thing that we're kind of big piece of advice we're giving out to the retailers that we work with. The second point that we want to make is communicate often. I think there's definitely an argument as to where communicate often becomes over communication and where that gets annoying. But I think communicating often is definitely a good go-to strategy for kind of keeping your customers up to date. So there's a few points here. So the first one is using email as a chance to communicate how your business is changing in the first place. I'm sure many kind of people who use kind of Sainsbury's and Tesco's and all that definitely got the kind of daily emails, weekly emails from the CEO of the supermarkets. But that's definitely just a strategy that a lot of smaller businesses are taking as well. Just kind of an open letter to customers that says, what you're doing to navigate through this crisis, what things are changing, just keeping your customer base up to date with what's going on in your business, because I think some of them will find it really valuable. And then there are a few things here that are obviously specific to retailers, but I think still can transcend to other businesses as well. So it's little things like making sure that your delivery and returns page is up to date with kind of the new policies and the new guidelines. If you know that your delivery is going to take maybe a week, 2 weeks longer than it usually does, make sure that's on your delivery page so that you're communicating as often as possible and you're putting all the information out there. Similar thing is turning on delivery notifications for all of your orders. If a delivery is running late, make sure you've got some kind of trigger system that can trigger a notification for your customer so that they just know that it's going to be late, or they know that it's going to be delivered in this different way, or whatever your situation is. Just make sure you communicate as often as possible with your customers. And then the last point here is making sure you update your contact information on your website. So obviously, the vast majority of us are now working from home, and the vast majority of teams are working from home. That might mean that some typical contact methods for your customers to get in touch with your business might not be in place. So if there were a few weeks where customers couldn't get in touch with you by phone because you hadn't had that set up yet, make sure you just update that on your website to say you can't get in touch with us by phone at the moment because we're still just getting that set up, but you can get in touch with us by email, or if you've got some kind of live chat set up on your website, or if social media is a good way that they can get in touch with you, make sure you just put that on your contact page so that the customers know. And then my last point about all of that is, even if nothing has changed, I think that's still worth telling people, because I know, again, as a consumer, if I've gone onto a e-commerce site to make a purchase with the business and it looks like it's just stayed the same, there's a part of me which thinks that kind of has this business become inoperable and just not being able to update their website at all. I think it's definitely just worth saying, we're still operating as normal-ish, or you can still contact us in the usual ways. It just might be a little bit slower than usual. I think that's still completely fine to update your contact page with. The third point is giving customers a chance to make a purchase later. A lot of customers might be struggling with their own kind of finances at the moment because either they've been put on furlough, or they might have unfortunately lost a job, or any number of circumstances. So they might be struggling with making purchases at the moment anyway. So giving your customers a chance to make a purchase later will definitely pay dividends in the long term, because it means you're not losing that customer. It means that they're not a customer right now, but you're still going to take the business later on, whether that's a few weeks, a few months, or even later in the year. So a few ways you can do that is offering gift vouchers. I mean, obviously that's again retail specific, but depending on your business, it might be something you can offer as well. Offering finance options and be understanding with payment terms. I mean, obviously, depending on your business as well, you might also be struggling with cash flow, so it depends how you can offer that. But being as understanding as possible with payment terms for your customers means that you're not going to take them off in the meantime, and it means that you might increase that longevity with that customer in the long term. And then again, another retail specific point there is, if you've got a product out of stock on your website, if you've got the functionality to turn on notifications for out of stock items. So if a customer goes on your website, they want to make a purchase with this particular product, you're out of stock, but if they can sign up to email notifications when that product is back in stock again, just means that you've got a chance to re-engage with them later down the line when you've got that product back in stock, and they might be likely to make a purchase then, rather than just losing them altogether and they're finding the product elsewhere. So yeah, definitely give them a chance to make a purchase at a later time if they can't do so now. The fourth point is showcase good causes. So I know there's been tons of businesses that I speak to that are just doing good, whether that's raising money for charities at the moment, whether they're just offering free services for businesses to help them out, or they're just doing kind of internal kind of mental health and well-being kind of policies within their business. This is all good causes that it's worth showcasing, so that your company is still present across social media when you promote that. Just positions your company as one that's doing good in the world, and I think a lot of people are responding to that really well at the moment. So yeah, if you're doing any of those, it's definitely worth putting that on social, writing a blog about it, making some video content if possible, and putting that on kind of online anywhere. It's definitely worth showcasing those good causes where you can. And I think as well, obviously a lot of companies are doing those good causes, but even if your individual employees are doing good in the community, whether they're raising money or whether they're volunteering anywhere, if they're comfortable with it, ask them if they don't mind the company sharing that as one of our employees is doing this, and this. That's definitely a good thing you can just put out in the world as well. So it's definitely worth doing that so you can maintain your positioning and maintain your brand visibility in this kind of crisis as well. And then the two last slides that I've put here are kind of opposites, but they kind of support each other as well. And the first one is focus on brand building and just go back to basics. So the first thing that obviously a lot of businesses are doing are embracing digital online. Digital online is a great way to focus on your brand building, because there's a lot of strategies that can work very closely with lead generation, but also with that top line brand building as well. So embracing digital online and being innovative with your brand building. So just making sure you're present all the time on social, on on your website, make sure that's updated as much as possible. Make sure your email newsletters are going out as often as possible as well. Just embracing that digital and online sphere. There's a lot of businesses, whether retail or not, that are kind of embracing digital for the first time. It's not something that they've really done before, or it's something that they're just kind of they started to find the feet, a couple of months ago before lockdown, and now they're just kind of been forced to really embrace it. So that's definitely one big thing that we're seeing retailers and businesses are just having to do. Creating useful content and sharing your perspective. Obviously, from Fluid Digital and the other agencies on the webinar today, this is useful content that we're putting out in the world, sharing our perspective, and hopefully some other businesses and some potential leads might find it kind of useful. So obviously that's a strategy that we're doing. But also any business can do this kind of thing as well, whether that's creating blog content on your website, whether you can do webinars in your kind of industry and your vertical, or you can just do kind of micro content. So one of the strategies that I've been doing as part of the marketing for Fluid is I've been putting short interview content on LinkedIn. So just webcam video content with partners we know the industry, 5-10 minute interviews, just sharing their perspective. We've got about 14, 15 mini episodes out, and that's just mini content that we've been able to put out quite easily and quite regularly, just to focus on our brand building. Again, from a retail point of view, but building loyalty and referral schemes. This kind of blurs the line between brand building and customer acquisition as well. But building those loyalty schemes so that you are increasing your customer retention as much as possible in this time. There's a lot of businesses out there that are struggling to find new customers. So really honing in on your existing customer base, building that customer loyalty and building that customer retention might be one of the easiest ways you can continue to drive revenue. So building loyalty and referral schemes from a retail point of view, but I think there's definitely ways that other businesses can do that kind of thing as well, even if they have to be a bit more innovative with how they do that. And then the last point there is ramping up paid search efforts. Obviously, it depends on your industry as well, but we've seen that cost per clicks are decreasing depending on the industry. There are some gaps where kind of other retailers or other businesses are freezing spend, so that's kind of a gap where other retailers are moving into and using that as an opportunity. So obviously, kind of speak to your PPC agency or speak to who's managing your PPC and seeing if there's any way that you should be ramping up your search efforts. Because that's definitely an opportunity that we've seen that retailers are taking advantage of as well. And then my last point here is embracing new technologies. So not just back to basics mindset, really just embrace new technologies and taking your business to the next level, using this as an opportunity to really grow and scale. So there are a few points here that we've been speaking to retailers about for kind of months and months, years even sometimes. And it's just been a really slow uptake for a lot of retailers. But now, because this is an opportunity for retailers, they're really embracing this new technology because they recognize that this is how they're going to grow and scale. So the first one is personalization, making sure that your site is personalized for each visitor. This is really key in e-commerce anyway, but it's definitely one that all businesses can take as well. Making sure your site is personalized, whether they're a new customer or a returning customer. Make sure they've got two different types of messaging when they go onto your website. That's a very kind of simple and straightforward way to think about it. But you can segment your site content by kind of customer group, whether you know they're kind of a marketing executive or a CEO. You might want to change some of your messaging on site there to just really personalize it for that visitor. Taking advantage of automation. Again, I know James mentioned some of the automation there in the B2B presentation, but this can be taken across all aspects of your business, really. Taking advantage of automation to just speed up some of your processes means you can focus on growth and scalability, and you don't have to worry about the manual tasks of kind of managing the business. The third point there is improving your site speed. Again, there's a lot of technologies you can kind of use to really improve your site speed and make sure that your site is working as fast as possible and as best as possible. And now's a really good time to do that. So that's definitely one to look at. And then the last point, which kind of encompasses all of the stuff that I've kind of mentioned here, but it's just preparing for growth and scalability. It really doesn't really depend on whether your business at the moment is really struggling and you're really kind of finding it challenging to find ways to be innovative. Maybe after lockdown, that's when you're going to be able to grow and scale again. But now's the time where you can prepare for that growth. Or alternatively, it is an opportunity for your business and you are one of the niche industries that are seeing incredible growth at the moment. This is your chance to really prepare for growth and scalability in the long term. It may be that after lockdown, this isn't much of an opportunity anymore. So you really want to be able to prepare and scale depending on whether you think it's going to be a dip after lockdown again or not. So these were the kind of the 6 areas that we want to share from a B2C point of view, but hopefully you found it useful from a B2B point of view if that's where you are as well. Thank you. I'll put my details there if you want to get in touch, but obviously we will also kind of speak at the end. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Joshua. I don't know about the people watching, but I certainly took lots of notes then. So really insightful talk. Can we have our final switch over, and can John please turn on your camera? Hey, we're here. I'll hand over to you, John.
Brilliant. You just get slides up, which I'm sure will go really smoothly. Okay, hopefully you can see that now. I can't see you, so I'm going to assume, unless Michael tells me otherwise, this is working nicely. So I'm the CEO of Bliss, John Stutfield, and Bliss is a digital support and strategy consultancy. We were born in a recession, so lean and efficient is in our blood. So we're hoping that will help us through this lean period as well. So Michael asked me to talk to you about to talk to businesses about lead generation sites. So very broadly about ways you can easily and cheaply invest in your business so that you can come out of this period in a stronger position than when you entered it. So that's because when I practiced this talk on my wife, she came up with just one comment, which was too many acronyms. So I've decided to go full on with that and stick them in the title as well. So this particular acronym, for those of you who haven't guessed, is Do-It-Yourself Conversion Rate Optimization for the win. But in truth, I'm not just going to give generic CRO advice, conversion rate optimization advice. And the reason for that is because you'll see a lot of articles like this. This is a really, really famous conversion rate optimization example, a much lauded and many case study conversion rate optimization website articles will include this one. And this is where a company called claims they've got 20% increase in conversions by changing a green button to red. I'm calling bullshit on this one because there's no way that this color alone changed this. The idea that 1 in 6 visitors hated green so much that they refused to click on the button is kind of absurd. But I do believe the 21% figure, and it's almost to do with other factors, and it's those factors that I'm going to run through quickly today. So yeah, there as well, how to improve the performance of your website from the comfort of your own home. I've got a few topics here to run through. We'll talk about performance, which Joshua actually just touched on towards the end, about making your website run faster, visual design and brand, visibility, CRO itself, and then if I have time, I'll touch on security at the end as well. So before we start, I've made a few assumptions about my audience, and looking at the list of people who are here, I'm not entirely sure I've got this right. There's quite a few familiar faces here, which is great to see anyway. But the assumptions I made are, first of all, that your website's already responsive. Because if it's not, you're dissing half of your visitors, and you should probably fix it first. You've got some goals set up in Google Analytics or whatever analytics software you're using, because you need to measure success, preferably with financial values, because you'll want to know that the changes you're implementing are having a positive effect and not a negative effect. And finally, that you want to do this in-house, so possibly in yourself as a business owner or a marketing manager. I've included tips and resources here for the DIYer rather than experienced digital agencies. But you know, if you're a Digital Pro, you can just play acronym bingo along with me to keep yourself amused. So first of all, performance. And by performance, I really mean speed. How do you make your website run fast? Why would you want to do that? So despite slagging off performable earlier, I'm not afraid to use other people's statistics to justify my own position. And here's another old, well-lauded statistic that a 1 second delay to fewer views and 7% drop in conversion. So it really does have a big effect. And even if you're this statistic, I've seen it with my own eyes on many occasions. One of our customers had a 30% increase in revenue last year, and we associate the majority of that improvement to the speed and performance optimizations we made. So in terms of sort of powerful data-driven websites, did with third-party widgets and integrations, rich media websites today are slow. I think the average page takes 15 seconds to load, but recommends 3. So there's a lot of improvement to be made here. Make your website fast, you'll earn more revenue. So here's a few DIY tips on how you might be able to do that. Use a CDN, a content delivery network. So these will store a static version of your website on their server, and so that's your visitors much faster than your data-driven websites. It's particularly good for global websites. If someone looks from the US, they will see a static version of your site served from server load and costs, and have other benefits which I'll come to later. Don't scrimp on your hosting. Shared hosting can be really slow, and you're very restricted on how you can optimize it to make it work faster. So choose a good provider. Be prepared to pay a little bit of money for it. One that you probably know already: optimize your images, videos. Just review, particularly if you've got a content management system. There's a good chance that over the years, heavy, big images and videos have been uploaded to your website. Go through them, optimize them, make them work better. I remember the first website that I made ran like a dog because my background image was 30K, and ever since then I've been kind of obsessed with reducing image sizes. Finally, on the speed side, remove unused or JavaScript widgets. So these are little things that you've installed at some point, add extra functionality to your site, but perhaps they're not used anymore, perhaps they're out of date, perhaps they weren't that good in the first place. We recently saved several seconds off the load times of a customer's website because we removed an unused widget that an intern had installed just as a test sometime in the past. So there are some resources that you can use to help you here. So it's a slightly technical tool that gives you a free technical audit, but there are some things in there like highlighting images that can be optimized, for example, that will really help out and that you can manage yourself. Shrink is a great, really simple way to optimize images. It's drag and drop. Cloudflare is one of those CDNs, content delivery networks I mentioned earlier. They've got a free service that does a lot of this and the caching that I was mentioning. You need a pro if you want to make further improvements. So caching your content management system or your application. So application caching can make a massive difference in the way that and the speed and performance of your site. And render blocking. So this is when the page won't display in a browser because it's waiting for JavaScript or CSS or something like that to load in the background. So going through the site, I think Lighthouse will highlight some of these issues. Go through the website and remove those blocks, and your site will load a lot better, but without reducing functionality. So brand and design. So it might not be an obvious way to improve conversion, but here's another stat. This one from a Gomez report called "Why Web Performance Matters." 88% of users are less likely to return after a bad website experience. And making sure your website works well, good design and brand communication helps website visitors understand and interact with your business. If you get it wrong, they may not become customers, even if you have the best product and service on the market. So first step, and I think this is particularly important now, given that your business and the world in which it operates in has probably changed and probably will continue to change. Look at your value proposition. The value proposition is what tells customers that your product or service is right for them. So you should make sure you demonstrate this really, really clearly. On the front page of your website should be the first thing that visitors see. And visitors are more likely to convert. They can see this value, the value of your product and your service. Great photography or illustration. You can have the best design website and the finest product on the market, but your crappy stock photography is going to make it look rubbish. So use good stock, take some nice photos, and you can dramatically improve the appearance of your website. So run through your website and look at what you have. Run a content and functional audit. There's a lot behind this simple bullet point here, but really just take an assessment of what you have at the moment. Consolidate anything that isn't necessarily is out of date, because your site will work better and you can reduce ongoing maintenance costs if there's less there. So allowing your visitors to be more efficient and get what they need quicker. And using an and consistent tone of voice. Again, if your website's been live for a while and you've got a content management system, it'll have loaded upon content and probably several years. So your tone of voice as you audit your content. Does it sound like your business? Does it sound like something that someone would want to do business with? And is it consistent? And a few small areas here and there, and of course it can be reused across all your other markets. So just a few resources here. Those first four are excellent free stock websites. The value proposition can, by the way, these are linked. I'm sure Michael will provide these slides afterwards if you want to get links to these resources. So the value proposition canvas is a really, really good improve your brand communications by getting that proposition right. And I think also it's a great time to review that proposition, as I mentioned earlier. So it'll help you design it, that it's got the right sort of market value. And you might be able to take great photos on your iPhones and Samsungs nowadays, but you still can't be a great photographer or illustrator to really step up the appearance of your website. So visibility might seem like a really obvious one. More website visitors equals more conversions. So we're stepping a little bit out of conversion rate optimization here and just saying, get more people, make some changes to your website to get more people to the site. So I'm not going to talk about digital marketing here. This is really just ways you can improve the website yourself to get those extra visitors. Most of it's going to be about content. I mean, it's easy to say we have time on our hands now. If you're anything like me, you probably have less time than you did before you kicked off, and less money. However, dedicating some time to planning and identifying interesting topics, setting a one topic a week, make it good, no fillers. This is not about just generating content for the site of it, because interesting content attracts us, and also that attracts search engines. Identify keywords, but don't write for search engines. Just keep in mind the sort of keywords that customers will use. Make sure your customers can share that great content. You can do that by adding share widgets to your website, and of course by sharing your own content, by spreading your own content through your own social network. Give your existing content a spring clean. So I mentioned this already, a content audit, running through what you have, improving, consolidating, or following up your existing content is a great way to increase traffic. And finally, something slightly different, a little bit of what we call SEO maintenance. So check for issues and errors using Search Console or some other software. Look for problems and fix them. This can give you a really quick boost, and you'll be surprised how quickly these errors mount up. So SEO Moz and Screaming Frog are two tools that our team uses. SEO Moz, you can pay quite a lot of money for it, but they do have a free version. They also have a 30-day trial of their pro version. So if you want to spend 30 days making your website better, that's a great way of doing it. Screaming Frog, it's like $99 a year, but they also have a free version. So it's a great way of pulling an SEO audit together and identifying little improvements that you can make yourself. Search Console, which I mentioned earlier, will identify the errors and issues that Google is seeing and judge your website on. So get on that, fix those errors, you will get a boost. This is really this last one here, when you need a pro. It's just a note to myself, really, to remind everyone, or if you don't know, highlight it, that Google is giving away free AdWords later this month to any business that advertised them for them with the majority of last year. So get onto your ad manager and grab those when you can. So finally, CRO is Cro Rate Optimization. That's turning more of your website visitors into actual customers. So 74% of conversion rate optimization programs increase sales, according to Marketing, which is a research institute. CRO is cheaper than acquisition marketing, but can be just as effective. So it's cheaper than your digital marketing, your paid search, those sort of advertising, but it can pull in just as many increased sales just by the same margins. So despite saying don't worry about changing your button read earlier, calls to action, CTAs, are really, really important. So make sure you've ideally just one main call to action, clearly separated from the other content. Use a complementary color. That might be red, it might be green, doesn't matter. Complementary to the rest of it, so it stands out. Use plain English on the text. The text on that button can be more important than the appearance of it. Use actionable words like download documents, get free audit, something which is the text that website visitor wants to convert. You could make your calls to action site-wide, stick to the header of your website if that's appropriate. Social proof. So social proof, this is where you demonstrate your trustworthiness to prospective customers by showing them evidence from existing customers. So reviews are a really good example of this. So you can promote these if you're on your site if you have them, or if you don't, ask customers that are visiting your web for reviews that you can then use later. Improving forms. I mean, anyone in digital marketing will know this already, but have a look at your forms. If they're long, make them shorter. Short as you can get away with. This will improve the amount of times that people complete them. Don't make them a chore to complete. Don't make it a hassle for people to get into when they want to. And don't ask for a phone number or the customers, because these are proven ways to stop them completing those forms. And test your site. So test your site on real people, and by real people I mean just not just yourself and the people that work for you. Obviously real customers are the best, but you can get great insight from friends and family as well. So in terms of resources, usetesting.com is an excellent tool for gathering up test subjects. They'll take videos for you or tests for you, and you can really identify how people use your website. And they have a 14-day free trial, so you can, during this period, make a number of improvements, test them on these subjects, and not pay a penny for it. PopKit, I've had to put free-ish resources here because PopKit's not free, but it's something that we've been installing for some of our smaller customers and prospective customers to help them with messaging across the website. So it's a good way of showing social proof, though. So you can use PopKit to plug into data, live data. So you can say that 5 customers are looking at this product right now, or George from Hull rated us 5 stars 10 minutes ago. So live data is social proof. Google Optimize, free tool to test the improvements you've made to run live tests on real website visitors. So you can even to identify whether your button should be read or not. Or they also have a little add-on at the moment to allow you to put little COVID alerts at the top of your website, so you can just sort of plug and play with that little widget from Google. In terms of needing a pro, if your tests that you want to run are a little bit more complicated than changing buttons and text, then an agency or a design professional can create a prototype, and that can then be used for real people without testing it on live website visitors. And of course, user testing labs. Manchester has some great user testing labs and great agencies that can run user testing for you to really get excellent and deep insights into what works and what doesn't work on your existing website. I don't know if I have time just to run through security. I'm going to run, I think I've gone over my time, so I'm going to really swiftly just run through it and skip the detail. Security as a means to increase leads is a little tenuous, I can understand that, but Google will demote your website for having poor security. So there is an opportunity for you, for example, if you're not using HTTPS by default. And a damaged reputation is difficult to repair. Can damage your conversions if you get hacked, if you accidentally have a data breach. And CTO Connor at Bliss just wanted to highlight passwords has been a really key way to tie this down. So review your admin passwords, make sure there's nothing on there. Remove all admin passwords and reset them all. This is a really safe way of doing it. Force good passwords or make people use passphrases rather than passwords. Use two-factor authentication if possible. Use a password manager. This is a real easy win for any organization. Make sure you're using a password manager across your organization, particularly for passwords that access your websites like content management systems. Use a content delivery network. That's popped up again because some of them, Cloudflare in particular, have web firewalls. They can act like a first line of defense for any vulnerabilities, and they can do that, for a very small amount of money. Oh, and educate your team. Don't assume that they'll recognize a phishing email. There's a very common phishing email going around at the moment, or a type of phishing email, CEO fraud, and that's when my team, example, get emails supposedly from me asking them to share sensitive information such as passwords or transfer money even. So make sure your team are aware that this sort of stuff exists and that they should be aware at all times. So just a few free resources there to help you with that, and that's it. So just in summary, speed to increase conversion. Make sure your brand is well communicated and that your customers have a great online experience. Improve the visibility of your site by creating and improving content and fixing any errors that Google can see. Increase your conversion rate by improving forms and calls to actions. Test those on real people. Keep your customers' trust by securing your websites and using HTTPS by default if you have a security professional you can rely on. And that's everything. I've got a little link at the bottom there. We've got loads of content and more tips like these. And feel free to write to me if you want any more information on this, or maybe I'll see you after this show. Right, thanks very much. I'm going to stop sharing now and hand you back to Michael.
Hi there, thank you very much, John. That was excellent. There's a lot of things gone on my to-do list. I'm not sure whether I do thank you for it, but I'm sure it'll be worthwhile. So we've had a question come in. Can I ask James and Joshua to come back in as well, please? There you go, James. You're hiding from us then. So we've had a question for you specifically, James. Catherine Davis says, I'm getting bored of emails from supermarket CEOs saying how they want to help and asking how I am. Do you have any tips on keeping calm, fresh and engaging?
Yeah, I suppose from my perspective, I think they're very much mass emails going out. Interestingly, actually, I quite find them interesting, hearing how they're putting like social distancing methods in place just because it's something we've never seen before. But yeah, it's a very generic message that goes out to the entire database. So what I'd say is that if you have personas, if you've got segments, really, you should be targeting that message to your different audience groups. To keep it fresh, have you got top customers? Have you got top engaged people in your database that you can reach out to in smaller numbers to get maybe a bit of an update? Because those personas were done in a non-COVID time. So I'd say looking at those personas now and going, actually, in a COVID time, what is their biggest issues? What's their struggles? How can we communicate with them? And then making sure that's relevant comms you're sending out, not to the entire database with the same message, but segmented.
Fantastic. And Joshua or John, do you have any insight on that question?
Yeah, I was just going to say a similar thing, really. Obviously, the emails from like Tesco and Sainsbury's are, I think they're very unique. It's obviously a very unique situation where we'll have to rely on these big supermarkets in this kind of crisis. And I think for them, they've used email as a similar way as they might use like a television broadcast, where they want to just reach as many people as possible with the same message. That's very unique. There's a lot of businesses that just aren't really going to use that in the same way. So yeah, just kind of segment as much as possible so you're sending relevant messages to your relevant customer groups. And yeah, just actually have something useful to say. I think, I mean, obviously, like I said, the supermarket emails are very unique. And I think on the most part, those emails have just been saying, this is where we stand today, because things are changing so much on a daily basis. Many businesses things aren't really going to be changing on a daily basis that customers really need to care about. So yeah, just have something useful to say. I think that's the best way to keep it fresh, really.
Great. And I've got a question for John, actually. Lots of people who I've been speaking to have said that they've been scared of selling at the minute because of how they might be perceived, or there's a conception that no one's looking to buy. Do you feel that these people have a point, or do you have a different view on that?
No, I agree 100%. I think we are feeling a slight change in attitude. As we start to ease lockdown, or at least we see a timetable, I think people will be slow into this. But I think that you can't ignore the fact that people are anxious and people are worried. So I think the best advice I could give is be empathetic with your messaging. Try and understand who you're talking to and how they're feeling. And these supermarket CEO emails are a really good example, I think, of where that's kind of missed, where don't come over as genuine at all. I think Joshua mentioned this earlier, or maybe it was James earlier. You're making sure that you are honest and transparent with your message, and not trying to sell stuff. Don't talk just from your own perspective.
Brilliant. And we've had a question come in from Harmon asking, for an SME, what is your advice on marketing automation tools? I think that's one for you, James, or perhaps Joshua too.
Yeah, there's a couple of recommendations I put in the slide. So Mailchimp is kind of a good starting point, but I think it depends on the size of the database you've got. Also, your CMS as well, that potentially has an impact, and how advanced you need your workflows or automations to be. Something like .digital is very good. You can get some very detailed workflows there. I know they've got some offers going on at the moment where you can get, I think, a certain amount of time free if you sign up for an 18-month contract. So yeah, I'd say in the slides that you'll get a copy of after this, have a look at some of the links that are in there, because yeah, Mailchimp is kind of your basic platform, and you've got other ones like .digital, even Bronto potentially, depends if you've got commerce in there, but yeah.
Great. And I think we'll end on this question before we go into networking. Who's getting it right at the minute? Does anyone like the way they've seen a brand or company selling? And if so, why? Oh, no one.
Quite a few businesses, in my experience, are getting it right. I'm not going to name names particularly. I can't think of many big brands, but to be honest, I'm hardly keeping on top of my emails and newsletters. If you're anything like me, your inbox will be full of newsletters from telling you some interesting, some not so interesting. So no, I can't name anyone in particular, but there are, I think, if anything, I think the majority of businesses are getting this right, particularly small businesses. They understand they're much closer to their customers than perhaps larger businesses are. So I sort of have every faith in the SMEs of the country.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing, to be fair. I think, whilst I can't really name like smaller businesses in general, but I think the smaller businesses are a lot more agile, so they've been able to shift a lot quicker and easier than those kind of huge high street chains as well. They can offer better customer service. I know that there's a lot of smaller retailers that we work with that have been able to maybe compete with Amazon for the first time, because Amazon haven't been able to kind of keep up with like delivery stuff, whereas smaller businesses have been able to shift fairly easily. So I think as long as you're agile, and a lot of small businesses are obviously a lot more agile than the bigger businesses, then they're the ones who are kind of really getting it right and winning at the moment.
Great. And James, do you like anyone?
I was quickly looking for my COVID folder in Gmail, where everything's just being thrown into. I probably have more people that I'm not happy with than I am happy with from a brand perspective. I think, even smaller businesses, like that's where I think I've built more empathy, because they are a smaller business. So yes, kind of, if you want to send me an email every 2 days, when normally I would only hear from you once a quarter, that's okay. But then when you get to a point of being bombarded by it, I think it starts to turn the relationship sour. So it does need to be, is it relevant? And does everybody need to know this? But yeah, not anyone that's standing out for me is amazing.
Okay, well, there's a gap there for someone, so hopefully someone will have taken your advice on board and will be leading the way. So with that, I'm going to end the Q&A and we'll go into networking. So as I say, if you've not done this before, it's a lot of fun. It's a bit like chat roulette, if anyone's old enough to remember that, where you'll be randomly assigned one of the attendees. If you're lucky, you'll get one of our speakers today. You might get me if you get the short straw, or you'll get one of the other lovely people in the audience. So I will leave you to start networking. You get 3 minutes of each person, then it assigns you to someone else, and you can stay in for as many rounds as you want. So thank you very much to our speakers today. It was really insightful, and thank you for your time. And we'll be sending a roundup that will include slides, bits of content from each of the businesses, and also a recording if you want to watch this again, because why wouldn't you? So with that, I'll hand over to networking. Thank you very much.